TechSmith.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to The Forge. This is our 9th episode. We're going strong, and we're so glad you guys could tune in and watch with us. We've got a great show lined up today. Just a couple housekeeping things before we get going. Want to remind you that you can follow us on Twitter, #TSCForge, or you can also email us at theforge@techsmith.com. You send us any comments, criticisms, feedback, any suggestions, small denominations, anything that you think would help us out to be better. So we've got a great show lined up today. We're going to be talking to Leigh Graves Wolf, and we've got a video about Eric Marcos and some cool stuff he's doing with kids in his classroom. Dan Spencer, a technology coordinator, is going to be talking about things that he's doing. And then one of our wonderful evangelists, Dave McCollum, will be on and sharing some cool things about video resumes and how that might help you out as you're out there looking for jobs or graduating college and trying to get into the workforce. So let's go and talk to Leigh. Leigh, welcome to The Forge.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
We are so glad that you are here, and I'm really excited because as I learned about your project that you worked on, it sounds very innovative. And let me just tell you, she is a fantastic Rock'em Sock'em Robot Challenger.
Not so
champion!
fantastic.
There's always round 2. So we'll get back to round 2 in just a second.
Okay.
So the project is, I'm going to try to get this right,
Yes.
socially sourced student feedback.
Very good.
That's a good tongue twister, but before, actually, let me do a favor. I'm going to slow down here.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about yourself so that we get some context of what you do.
Sure. I am the program coordinator for the Master of Arts in Educational Technology program at Michigan State. And our program teaches teachers and people that work with teachers how to use and integrate technology effectively into their practice.
So I take it these are teachers who are already in the classroom, a lot of them? Or
a lot of them. I'd say probably 60% of our student population are practicing K-12 teachers around the globe. And the other portion of our students either work in companies like TechSmith, helping teachers and working with teachers, or for companies that work with education or educationally minded. So
very cool. So the things you're doing is having a huge impact on students because teachers are able to take this stuff out and apply it.
Right. It's very practical. So all the work that they do in class, they take out right away and can use in their classrooms.
Awesome. So let's talk about socially sourced student feedback. And first of all, what's the kind of overall concept here?
Well, the context of the course, actually, that might help a little bit.
Okay.
First is a course called Teaching K-12 Students Online. So the course is teaching teachers how to create online courses, and they create an online course in the class. And so this actual assignment here that I'm going to be talking about is their final course that they've done and turned in. It's not a full year-long course, but just a module that they concentrate on. And then the unit is assessed internally by me and externally by someone out in the community or one of my friends who thankfully volunteered for this experiment. So we did this a couple semesters ago, and I can talk a little bit about what worked and what didn't. But I think at the core, the really cool thing was this idea of internal and external assessment, which comes from my former work in the International Baccalaureate curriculum, which the high school students actually have their work assessed in the class and also by people around the world.
So probably my guess is this gives the teachers who are going through this program an opportunity to get some I mean, it's one thing to hear from a teacher. It's another thing to hear from other people who are teaching.
Right, and it's one thing to hear from your own teacher, and then others who are looking at your work with a different eye as well. Because I've seen their work throughout 15 weeks of a semester.
Right.
Whereas someone or an expert, and what I tried to do with the 16 people, I had 16 people volunteer, and I think 32 students. So it paired up pretty much one-on-one, and I tried to connect people to experts in their subject area. Okay. So I had if someone was creating a foreign language class, I would connect them with the foreign language professor or English
so there's some other expertise there. They could
say,
so
not just the tech piece, but they can really focus on the content, the pedagogy as well, and look at the model or the unit that they've created, not just from it looks pretty, it looks nice, but actually it's getting to the content piece.
Very cool. So this seems like it seems like there's a lot to this.
Yeah.
A lot could go wrong. It could be tough.
Right.
How did you manage to make this work? What were some of the steps to it?
It was, from the instructor standpoint, it was a bit time intensive to actually find the people to pair the students with. And we did it towards the end of the semester, which is busy for everyone. Right. So actually coming under a time pressure was a bit of a challenge. But it ended up working out quite well, and we used Jing to do the screencast, so that kept a 5-minute limit nicely on what people could do. So they had that in place, and actually we only asked for people to do like a 2 or 3 minute review, but they couldn't go over because that was their time limit, which was nice. And it was nice of them to dedicate that much time, because from the reviewer standpoint, it took about an hour per course to review, because you're really going through and looking at the content, thinking about it, and then generating.
So yeah, this is probably not just a case where if I'm a reviewer, I can't just say, oh, let me do a 2-minute video, I'm done, because you got to look at all the different pieces.
Right, and I can show you a piece if you want.
Sure, we'd love to.
This is one, this was an English teacher who 6 traits of writing is a very common concept in the classroom. And I'll just show the first 30 seconds of the idea of how this was set up from a reviewer. So this is an external reviewer reviewing a student-created course.
Okay.
Hello, Aaron. Thanks for inviting me to take a look at your 6 traits writing modules and thinking about how you're incorporating this with your 1st through 3rd grade students. My name is Troy Hicks. I'm assistant professor of English at Central Michigan, and I also direct the Chippewa River Writing Project. So my background is doing professional development with teachers related to all kinds of writing, including the 6 traits. What I thought I would do is try to walk through your module with you and periodically jump back over to the rubric and look at what it is that you're trying to accomplish with this. So first of all, I'd like to say that I think
So it looks like, I mean, from just a pure screencasting recording point, it doesn't look like there's anything fancy here, just giving really a verbal type of review, maybe pointing some stuff out on the site.
Right, exactly. And you saw he pointed to a rubric. The students had to create a rubric on what they wanted to be evaluated on as well. And instead of just having them go through and fill out a form and write text-based feedback, especially when you're talking about an online course that's so visual, the reviewer could talk about and go back and forth between the writing pieces, but also physically say, you know, the way you organized this piece was very good because, or it needs improvement because you can see from the learner standpoint, it gets lost in the busyness or something like that.
So it seems like, I mean, I could see lots of people trying to adopt doing something like this. You know, you don't have to be at the higher level to necessarily do this. What worked really well? What did the students like? And is there anything that you thought, you know what, this wasn't what we'd want to do next time?
Yeah, the students really did like it. Added sort of an extra layer of pressure in a good way to have someone else from the outside look at their assignment. From the instructor standpoint, that was a bit difficult to manage. But I've also done the same sort of feedback internally. What we did to modify it the following semester is I had teaching assistants working with me. So we would take turns with different groups of students. So we didn't have to coordinate the external, but we still used the screencasting model for feedback. But I would work with one group of students through the whole course, and then someone else would do the final evaluation piece. So we still use sort of pieces of this, but coordinating such a large group of people. The idea was to have one-on-one, but the classes are about between 30 and 40 students, and that gets...
It really stretches your personal learning network at that point, right?
It stretches my favors that I have for friends.
When they come back and ask and they want stuff from you, you know,
exactly.
we would come on a web show or, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff like that.
So if you were going to do some, like, make some recommendations to someone to do this, what what tips, what things would you recommend that would make this maybe more successful?
I would definitely lay out clear expectations for the reviewers of the types of things that they're supposed to target as they're reviewing, because there were a lot of questions about, because when you're evaluating people, there's a little bit of fear in there. You don't want to be too harsh, but our students were told that it's going to be a very fair and open evaluation for improvement. Not necessarily you're going to be marked down for what you've done.
So if I was one of those people and I just was really in a grumpy mood and gave some really harsh feedback, and that's okay, learn from it. Right,
because you're an expert in instructional design and things like that. So then they would be able to learn from that. It's more of the focus on the learning experience and improvement. But the feedback was that they really did love hearing from other people. They love seeing the feedback rather than just typed out comments. That was huge in terms of approval and things that students liked. And I'm trying to remember some other things. I think you're going to put a link to this up there. I kind of more eloquently maybe wrote it out because I had time to think about it. That talks a little bit about the good and the bad and the tools that I used and other examples.
Very cool. So obviously at TechSmith we're big fans, and I you use Jing, but again the limitation here is whatever you have available, right? Right,
and I've done it with just an iPhone and audio, just audio feedback, sending an MP3, or I'm trying to think of some other ones, or if you have a flip cam and just do video that way, just anything to sort of enhance the assessment process beyond just text and beyond just numbers is I think the key thing here. And this was one tool that was just really easy to use to do it.
Well, I think it's a brilliant process. We're as an instructional designer, we do lots of reviews. And sometimes the reviews aren't fun to get back.
No, right, so absolutely. And I think this is a way where you can really explicitly, and you can also hear a tone in the reviewer's voice that that may be easier to interpret than just sort of harsh text comments.
So if I were to say, if anyone watching this and they wanted to be a reviewer, would you be open to having?
Oh, please. I would love to do this again with a wide, and I think as my Twitter network has grown and has things like this get published, that I can grow a base of people that can help.
So, okay, so just I want to kind of recap here some thoughts, because I'm thinking about the teachers out there who might want to do something like this, whether they're a 6th grade teacher or college level or wherever that on the spectrum. So you need to get some people lined up to help out.
Yep.
You need some kind of tool to allow them to give feedback that's not just another written piece of feedback. And in fact, I can almost imagine for younger kids that works even better, because they can understand a lot more verbally than maybe they'll get out of the reading or My Chicken Scrawl or whatever it might be. What about, from the hosting standpoint, you use screencast.com, but again, you could probably use anything that you're comfortable with.
Anything. For the audio one, for example, we used our course management system to post a link to we uploaded the audio there. So you can use a variety of different things. And you can even have students assessing each other this way, because the tools are so easy to, even on the iPhone, you just press a button, record, and email it right from the phone. So there's a lot of easy ways to mediate this.
Got to trust your 3rd graders with your iPhone.
Definitely.
Now, right? So,
or have the 3rd grade, that actually would have been a fantastic idea, is to have the students do the assessment as well, because they're the ones that are going to be using it. So that would be, you just gave me a great idea for the next next round. I think that goes into the usability piece too, and sort of user testing. You could use it in that way. That's specific to this course, obviously, but it's another mechanism.
Well, this is very cool. I mean, I love this idea, and I love what you've been able to do with it. Before we wrap up, is there any other cool things that you'd want to talk about project-wise that you can feel free to give your Twitter tag and anything like that.
If you follow at MAET, Master of Arts in Ed Tech, you can see what we're doing as a program, or pound MAET. All of our students that post work up there, you can kind of see what they're doing, and it's a great resource for teachers to connect with each other and learn from what our students are doing.
Definitely. Well,
thanks.
You ready for another round? We'll get to that in just a second here. If you want to follow Leigh, you can look her up on Twitter. We'll have a link to her, so if you want to talk to her about what she's doing, ask some questions, you can always email us at theforge@techsmith.com. We'll get it sent over to Leigh and help facilitate that conversation, get you introduced. If you have great ideas about what you're doing in the classroom, we'd love to hear from you. At TechSmith, we want to help educators be successful. We think our tools are in a good place to do that. You can tell us what you're doing. Email us again at theforge@techsmith.com. I want to thank Leigh for coming on. Next up, we've got a video about Eric Marcos, what he's doing in the classroom. Eric's a fantastic teacher. He's teaching kids math, and better yet, he's getting kids to teach other kids math. So we'll take it away. And Leigh, you ready? Okay, ready? Go!
Hi, it's Bob and Paul again, and we're back in action. So the first thing we're going to do is round a decimal. We're going to round the number 1.856.
My name is Eric Marcos, and I work at Lincoln Middle School in Santa Monica, California. I teach mathematics to 6th graders, and I love it. And so about 4 or 5 years ago or so, this girl, Paul, which is not her real name, by the way, she sent me a message. She said, Mr. Marcos, I don't understand how to do this problem. So I had this software program, and I said, all right, I'm gonna try to show her how to do the problem.
And then he was like, well, let me just whip up a video, and then he put it on and like instantly understood the video.
And then he started making videos and posting them on his website. He was talking about his videos, and I was doing the homework, and I said, hey, Mr. Marcos, can I like try making a video?
She started it off, and it was brilliant. The first words out of her mouth was something like,
hello, my name is Bob. I'm going to read you this problem and show you how to do it.
This is all, again, unscripted. Okay, she was not reading a script. She was not reading notes about how to do this or what to say. I did not coach her. I would love to take credit.
Photo to 2 inches, and this is...
And the kids teaching kids aspect comes out of this more so because the other kids in the class were watching, and they jumped on that.
Hi, this is
Phineas
and Ferb, and today we're going to show you how to solve a proportion.
Today we're going to teach you how to do probability, how to do lattice multiplication. We're going to teach you how to evaluate algebraic expressions.
I think kids like learning from other kids because there's like almost a kid language, and it's just easier to understand things when you hear it from someone who's learned everything the way you have.
And also there's like multiple ways to solve a problem, and a lot of times the teacher will be taught by the students because the teacher will learn one way to teach it, and they'll know one way to solve a problem, and the kid will come back and realize, oh, you can solve it this way, and then it benefits them too because then they can teach it multiple ways the next year. My name is Aaliyah Spielman.
I'm Tiana Catfledge.
My name is Camilla Spielman.
I am a student,
A teacher.
I am a cheerleader.
I'm a water polo player,
And I love Camtasia Studio. And we
We
are
are
out!
That's awesome.
Hi, we're back. We want to thank Leigh again for spending some time with us. Now we've got with us a good friend of mine, Dan Spencer. Dan is a technology coordinator down in Jackson County, Michigan, and at the or whatever. So Dan is actually, he was a chemistry teacher.
Correct, yep.
And was doing some really cool, interesting things in the classroom. We want to have a conversation about those things. Again, we're having a very educational kind of episode, so why not, right? So Dan, tell us a little bit about your background, what you used to teach, and maybe some of what you were doing in the classroom.
Yeah, well, I taught for about 10 years in junior and high school with chemistry and physics and all those sciences and things like that. And about 5-6 years ago, I started taking a look at the way I was doing things, and I wasn't happy with it. And I really wanted to have my kids have a little more ownership of how they learned and what they were doing in the classroom. And I came across this idea of the flipped classroom from some teachers out in Colorado, and really this idea that there's certain things that are a good use of time in the classroom, and there's certain things that might be traditional but might not work very well. Lecture being the example, and I thought, I don't think my kids are getting a whole lot out of my in-class lectures. I definitely know that I could use that time differently in class, but they need to have access to the content. And especially in a small school where I have a really wide range of kids in all my chemistry classes, I was having kids that were just flying through the material, and I had kids that were really struggling with it. Yet I was making them all go through the exact same thing at the exact same time.
So let me stop there before we get too far. So the idea of the flipped classroom, kind of in a nutshell, you're taking what you used to do in one spot and moving it over to another spot.
Yeah, exactly. You just I was taking my lectures that were normally happening in class, turning them into screencasts, and then making it so that my kids could access those outside of class, which was great because it freed up time for my kids to do the stuff that really gets kids excited about chemistry, doing the labs, doing the demonstrations, getting to work one-on-one with my kids. That was the big thing, is all of a sudden now I can work with the kid who's really struggling while other kids who are having an easier time of it are able to move through at their own pace rather than just waiting for each other.
So I guess I'm interested at this point is like, because I'm not a teacher, I'm not in a classroom, I've got my own kids and I know what they struggle with, but what were some of the struggles that you were really hitting up against that led you to say, this isn't working like I want it to work?
Well, I'll tell you, you're right on there that there's a lot of things that happen in education just because it's the way it's always been done and because it's convenient. And this whole factory mentality of everybody goes through at the same speed, and regardless of what you learn, you're all kind of shoved through things. And that frustrated me because I had high-achieving kids who were having to wait, who wanted to go farther and faster and weren't able to. I had kids who were really struggling and really trying, they were trying to figure out if this was where they wanted to go. And that was frustrating because, you know what, I wanted all my kids to be able to learn. I wanted all my kids to be able to succeed. And I couldn't give them the time and attention that they really needed to be successful. So when I found out a way that it was possible to let kids go through at their own pace, that really resonated with me because I think we all learn differently. I think we all learn at different paces and in ways that aren't like everybody else. And if I could change my classroom to match that with my kids, I knew it was going to work.
So you know, having just enough background about education, you know, probably get myself in some trouble here if I try to speak, but it sounds like what you've been able to do, which I think this is a really difficult thing that we haven't really figured out completely, is you've been able to help kids at all those levels. It seems like, you know, you implement a program for gifted students or advanced students, and it helps those kids, but it doesn't help the kids on the other end.
Right.
We do stuff for the kids on the other end of the spectrum, but then we're not really helping the kids. So it sounds like this was able to really play to everyone, you know, where you could lift some people where they needed or let them go on when they were ready.
And they're really, if education's going to work, you have to be able to individualize it. And that's scary because it's a lot of work and it's really outside of what we're all used to. I mean, we all went to school. We all have our idea of how school is going to be, but really the way school is set up, in my opinion, caters to a certain type of student. And you either learn to be like that student or you're going to struggle. And I think that when teachers are able to find ways to do that individualization, to let kids learn in ways that work for them and at paces that work for them, there's going to be a lot more buy-in with the kids. And when they feel empowered and when they feel like they can do stuff, it's going to be a lot easier on the teacher to help them succeed.
So I can imagine there's teachers out there, as they watch this, they'll say, you know what, that's great for Dan. Dan is obviously technology advanced. He's willing to put in the time, the effort, but when the rubber hits the road, did it really make a difference in your classroom?
I think it did. I did, especially with my kids who are struggling. My kids who were high achieving, they were going to do well no matter what. But my kids who had a hard time with chemistry, who needed that extra attention, I saw a big decrease in the number of kids who were failing my class. I wish I could say that every kid passed my class and that every kid was scoring a 36 on the ACT and things like that, but it didn't work that way. But I'll tell you, it's great when I have the kids who would come up to me, and it's a story I tell all the time about one of my students who had to watch a screencast 3 times before she got it. But beforehand, she was frustrated, she was shutting down, it wasn't a good experience for her, and when all of a sudden she could go through at a rate that worked for her, she got excited about it. And that was fun as a teacher to see that. So, okay, again, I see this now. I think people are going to be out there and say, well, you know what, I like the concept. Yeah.
Okay, he's persuaded me that this is something that is going to work. It's obviously not a panacea. It's not going to cover everything. But so let's take a couple minutes and let's walk through a little bit of the how do I get going? Because in your new role, as you're going out teaching teachers, this is something that one of the things they're doing. So, you know, we don't have all the time to go through all the how-tos. We got lots of other training materials. Go check those out. But if you're going to teach someone how to do this, and not just use this program to do this, where do we start?
See, that's the beauty about it, is because you can go in baby steps and you can make it work for, I was a high school chemistry teacher, okay? This can work for a junior high Spanish class or an elementary school math program or things like that. What I started out doing was just creating screencasts of my lectures so that my kids who were absent could have access to them. And then as I did that, all of a sudden I had a few kids who started to catch on that said, hey, you know what, I heard Mr. Spencer talking about this. I'm going to go back and look at it before this test. And that was a real light bulb moment for me, because I saw, okay, well, now that they can rewind the content or view the content again, it's going to make a lot more sense for them. That the next year, I started getting it set up where my kids could access all of the materials for a unit at any time through Moodle. And they were all of a sudden, then they were able to get stuff done on their own. They were able to get stuff done in class. They were able to work on it at their own pace. And as long as they could show me that they understood it, I let them go, because everything was there. It didn't matter if they were in class. They could be gone for a week on vacation or something. They could still access everything. It didn't have to happen within the walls of my classroom. And that got really exciting, because it just really blossomed from there. Because you think about it, all of a sudden now, if you can go at your own pace, if you can learn things the way you want to, why not give kids options to show how they understand? Instead of having every kid take a multiple choice test, I can take all of these resources, this library that I've accumulated, and start to make it so that kids have options. If they learn a certain way, all of a sudden, as long as they know what they're supposed to learn and as long as they can demonstrate it, if they can show it to me, I'm fine with that.
Very cool. I guess there's always a factor of time.
Yes.
So, you know, I guess I'm playing a little bit of that, like, I'm skeptical, but I wish I have a class that I'm thinking right now. I wish my teacher would have done this. It would have been so good. I would have done better in school. But for teachers, I know that's a big factor for any teacher. They've got a lot to do. There's a lot of pressure. You know, there's already a lot going on. And I know you said baby steps. Are there things that you found that help kind of minimize that ramp up? Because it sounds like you could eventually get to this tipping point, right, where the cost investment is less than what you get out of rewards, but up front that doesn't seem to be the case.
Right, and that's really important to understand. What you have to understand more than anything is that with the time investment, when I was in my old classroom and I would do a lecture, as soon as I was done, it was done, and I'd have to redo it all over again. When I started making my screencasts, all of a sudden that was permanent. That was something that kids could come back to a year later. And after I'd done the effort to create something, tweaking's a lot easier. You can come back later on and make it better, but you don't have to invest as much time. So what I would say is, yeah, it's a lot of time up front, but just think about the time you're going to be saving in the future when you don't have to recreate that every time. And maybe it's something as simple as just starting with every unit you create one screencast. It doesn't have to be every single time. But if you just create one, that's one less that you have to do next year.
Right. Well, this is fantastic. Again, we want to give you guys the opportunity. If you have questions for Dan, we'll get you guys hooked up. He's on Twitter as well. I'm sure he'd love to have some connections and hear from you guys and have questions. You can always email us at theforge@techsmith.com. You can even get into our education community. We've got a blog out there that Dave McCollum, who will be coming up here soon. You can always connect through the blog, and I'm sure we can make that all happen for you guys. Dan, I want to thank you for coming on and talking about Flip Classroom. If you want to know more about flipping your classroom, please contact us. We'd love to have you hook up with Dan and other educators out there. You can check out our YouTube channel. We've got some other stories of guys that John and Aaron out in Colorado. They're kind of, I guess, maybe the brainchild of flipping the classroom. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to watch a quick Camtasia Studio commercial, and when we come back, Dave McCollum on the air.
Camtasia Studio gives wings to the information trapped in one person's head or a one-time event, so it can go anywhere to train, teach, and sell. It's easy because your computer monitor is like a stage. Put anything up on the screen, record it with Camtasia Studio, and turn it into a great-looking screencast video. It's cost-effective because you can do it yourself. No expensive actors, sets, or snappily dressed producer. I'll show you what I mean. Meet Nate, the consultant. Nate slaved away for days to create a presentation for his best client. They were blown away. But then it was over, and all that great information would sit, forgotten and unloved, in a PowerPoint file. Or would it? Being a clever fellow, Nate instead used Camtasia Studio to record the presentation and post it to his YouTube channel with a couple of clicks. Unlike a boring slide deck, Nate's screencast was just like the live experience, with animations, voiceover, and webcam video. It gained him some attention and some new clients. He realized people would pay for this kind of information. In fact, he could build out a complete training series, showing all the tips and tricks that he discovered. So Nate recorded step-by-step demonstrations with Camtasia Studio, and edited them into consistently great-looking videos, with Camtasia's tools to cut and splice, focus attention, call out important bits, zoom in on the details, even clean up his audio. Today, Nate's enjoying more traffic, clients, and influence thanks to his screencasts. You could even say he's becoming something of a rock star. And what about you? You must have a few good screencast movies locked away in your head. So get Camtasia Studio today and set them free.
We're back. Thanks a lot for Dan Spencer's time talking to us about the flipped classroom. Now we're here with our education evangelist, Dave McCollum. Dave, welcome. Glad to have you back on The Forge. And you've got something that I think is really interesting. We're continuing along. This is not the factory stamped education model we're talking about here. Tell us a little bit what you got for us today.
Well, it's an interesting timing on the show to be on here with Leigh, because in addition to working for TechSmith, I'm also a member of the MAET program at MSU. And as part of that, I've been working on a little research around the area of kind of showing how you can use screencasts to show different ways to really set yourself apart when you're looking for a job.
So we're going here from the classroom to the real world once you leave the classroom, potentially.
Exactly. So, and we're going to kind of jump back into the classroom here, into our screencast of the week, where I have a screencast from Katie Regan, who is a teacher and technology coordinator. And she, like a lot of other teachers out there, is in the process of looking for a job right now. And she just visited TechSmith a couple weeks ago, and we chatted about this. And I said, hey, why don't you try making a video to set yourself apart from everyone else that's looking for these jobs? Because we knew that she was doing great things. And a lot of times when you have a resume, it's a big list of bullet points, and it's just kind of a standard thing. Mm-hmm. And as someone that's reviewed resumes before, it's often pretty difficult to find the best candidates from that. And so I think of that as if I'm applying for a job in the future, that I would want to find some way to kind of just set myself out from the crowd. And I think video is a great way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, what's the kind of the old adage? You get like 30 seconds or less with when someone looks at your resume, so you need something that's going to maybe set you apart. So, is there anything you need to set up here more than you've already done? Or are we
I'll just show a quick clip here. This is about a 3-minute video. I'll show a section of it, and then I'll kind of scrub through a little bit and show some other samples. So
let's take a look.
Katie can take it over here.
During my time as a 7th grade teacher, I have to manage my time between planning, collaborating, research, and of course assessing. I use technology on a daily basis to engage my students in learning, to help me create materials, to train others effectively, and to help me manage my time. Because I am passionate about the use of technology in our
So this is just one little section here, but if you go through this whole video, she starts by doing this resume overview, and again, kind of taking some of those bullet points and going into a deeper level than you ever could if someone was just looking at your resume. And then what I really like, as the video moves on, she starts to go through some real examples of things she's done. She shows work she's done integrating in Moodle, and then she finishes off by showing ways you can connect with her, by showing her, let's see, she has her blog on here, information about how to find her on Twitter, and her library of screencasts. So she really gives you this opportunity to find something much more than what's on paper. I think the point where this can really jump in and provide some value is, sure, you need that great resume to get through that initial selection phase, but then when you have the good pile of resumes, and you're really trying to decide who to interview, who to give a call to, this is something that really says, wow, this person's done something different. And you can also kind of conduct sort of a choose-your-own-adventure job interview. If you're looking at a resume and you see a bullet point, you say, wow, I'd like to know more about that, you can just click on that and watch a video on it.
Well, it definitely seems like it goes beyond having written resumes, having reviewed resumes. It's often hard to even know when someone's describing something, well, what does that really mean? What do they really do? This seems like a great way to kind of overcome that. Like, you can actually show what you're capable of. Because, I mean, it's kind of like, here, let me prove to you that I'm capable of doing these things. So I think that's fantastic. So.
Absolutely. So just a couple things on the next steps here. I'm just starting to learn about this myself, but we have some of our awesome TechSmith interns are taking this project on and making some of their own videos, because they're in the position of, they'll be looking for jobs soon, possibly here. And so we're excited to work with them. And then once we start getting together some of those examples, we hope to be pushing them out. And then also, we're looking to find examples from the community as well. And once we start building up a library of different ways that this can be used by people across different fields, I think it'll be really exciting. So if you're interested, feel free to contact me. And I just got to give one more plug here. If you're interested in hiring Katie, I will have her information in the show notes as well.
Yeah, you bet. And speaking of hiring, we are a company. We actually like to hire people sometimes. So we actually have a whole list of positions open. If you're interested in working with TechSmith, come work with me. Come work with Dave. Maybe take Dave's job. He can make a video resume for you and tell you what the job would be like. Just kidding. We don't want to lose Dave. But if you're interested in working with us, seriously, we've got lots of positions. We've got developer positions. We've got marketing positions, all sorts of things. Check us out. Go to the TechSmith homepage, www.techsmith.com/jobs, and you can see that list there. And if you don't see something that you're interested in now, check later, and there just might be something that's a good fit. And if we get a video resume, we'll just make sure to check it out. So a couple things before we end up, Dave. First of all, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate our evangelists coming on every single month, coming up with great screencasts and interesting information. We do want to mention, because this has been a very educational kind of opportunity, and we've been talking to teachers, we do want to mention our EDU discount. Dave, you're probably more familiar with that. So if you are a teacher, work for a school,
student, any of those, anything related to a school pretty much,
you can get an education discount on Camtasia Studio SnagIt. So if you're interested in products, but I know budgets are tight, you might want to check that out. Contact our sales department, and they can give you all the details. And last of all, it's been a very fun 9 episodes of The Forge. We're going to take a break, though. We got some things to fix, some things to work on and make better. And we want to make the very best Forge we can for you. So before we end for the summer, we'll be back in August. First of all, this is not we're done for good. It's not goodbye. Just we needed some time to reconfigure some things. I do want to thank a couple people. I want to thank Dave and Betsy Cupcake Weber for coming on to The Forge every single month. They're a great motivator and inspiration for the show. We also want to thank Kelly Rush, who is typically our floor manager or running the things behind the scene. He's actually Kelly, I sucker punch a dinosaur. Watch the intro, you'll get it. Rush, he's also responsible for getting us our awesome, sweet opening music. We want to thank Jess, I Can Do This, for all of her great running the scenes, doing all sorts of crazy stuff with all the other things that she does. Daniel Foster for running all of our social media and making us work a little bit better and think a little bit smarter. Our wonderful interns, Jordan Skoll, Josh Emmington, and our newest intern, Allie White, for helping out, running things behind the scenes as well and keeping us connected during the show. I'm Matt Pierce. This has been The Forge, and we will see you guys in August. Thanks again to all of our guests over the season. Take care.